Hey everybody, Graham here. So, I got two things I want to talk about today. Number one, James O'Keefe. James is starting a new venture. It is to be called the OKeefes Media Group, which is fortuitously acronymed OMG, which I think is pretty great. He wants to do with this is to, number one, crowdfund it to some extent. I get the feeling that he's someone whose operations tend to be a little bit more expensive than just crowdfunding alone can handle. But he, the more he crowdfunds, the better, as far as I'm concerned. But what he wants to do is he wants to empower citizen journalists to be his undercover reporters and, doing things like getting people cameras and things like that. I think this is a great idea. I was hoping that James would have something planned relatively quickly after his ouster from Project Veritas. And that's what we seem to have with the OKeefes Media Group. I think it's an excellent thing. James did an interview with the Quartering, and Jeremy asked him some really good questions, and he had some really good answers. And one of the things that he said it a couple of times, is that his goal was to decentralize journalism. And I think that's... I don't think you could have a better goal than that. I think that's an excellent goal. I think the more decentralized journalism is, the better. People forget that in the early days of newspapers, back like in the colonial era, a lot of newspapers were one guy with a printing press, like Ben Franklin. And they would put together little news sheets and get them out there. And that's what a newspaper was. And then over time, it, like most things, it became institutionalized and credentialed. And now if you didn't go to journalism school and, this and that, people say, well, you're not qualified to be a journalist. Well, anybody's qualified to be a journalist who can investigate a story. So the other thing James is going to do is he's going to run webinars on, how to be effective at it, the ethics of it, things like that, the legalities of it. There are certain places where you can't record people without their consent. In terms of equipping and educating people to go out and do journalism, I think that's a fantastic thing. I don't think you could ask for something better. So, excellent. Way to go, James. The second part of this video is sort of a follow-up to my last video. And I got a lot of really great comments on my last video. Some of you are wonderfully compassionate and it means a lot, and I appreciate it. I want to talk a little bit about what depression feels like, because for a long time I didn't know I had it. I thought I was just pessimistic and morose, but that's not it at all. It's hard to describe because there are mental aspects of it and there are physical aspects of it, and they're all interrelated. So I'm going to do the best that I can to try to talk about a few of these things so that maybe if you're feeling the same way, you might look into whether this is something that's affecting you as well. So the first thing I can tell you is that it makes you feel slow. Depression is literally a slowing down of everything. But most noticeably, I feel like I think very slowly right now. There's a sort of fog that goes along with it that makes it hard to think. My girlfriend, who has ADHD, talks about brain fog a lot, and I know that's a symptom of ADHD, but it's also a symptom of depression. If you're in an episode, there's a fog, and I don't know if it's the same as the ADD fog. I get the feeling that the ADD fog is like too many things flying around all at once, and they all kind of just blur. Whereas with depression, it's really more like just an actual fog has settled over your mind and just made everything murky and dark and hard to see. And as a result, you just kind of slow down. And so there's that. And the slowness, I feel it in my body as well. I'm tired. It's not even 9 a.m. yet, and I'm tired. I've had 2 cups of coffee, and I'm tired. And I've been tired for weeks. And it's hard to have energy. I am one of those lucky people, and it's not uncommon that I have anxiety that goes along with my depression. The anxiety is pretty much always there. Like, even when I'm not depressed, there's a certain level of anxiety that I tend to think of as my baseline. There's it's just kind of burbling along under here, and then every once in a while it comes up, and then it might go back down, and then every once in a while there's a spike. And sometimes the spike will level out at a higher level than before the spike. In fact, that's pretty common. And that usually happens when you get, bad news, or somebody says something that triggers you, or you think about something that triggers you. But the anxiety feeling is like this tightness across your chest. And it's the feeling that you get when you have a fight or flight response. If you just narrowly miss getting into an accident in your car, you get this feeling, this sort of spike of adrenaline and that kind of thing. And it's a very similar feeling, except it doesn't stop. It just keeps going. And the anxiety itself can lead to depression, because if it's bad for a long period of time, it's kind of demoralizing, and you just never feel like you're going to feel any better, and that becomes sort of the basis of the depression, and it's a pretty horrible cocktail. I do take antidepressants, and they help. You look at a guy who takes antidepressants and he's in the middle of a depressive episode, and you say, well, the antidepressants clearly are not sufficient. But that's not really true. They do help. If I were not taking them, I would probably be much worse. and I would be a lot less confident that I'm going to bounce back. I'm reasonably sure I'm going to bounce back. So that's sort of the physical stuff, the slow, and the anxiety. The mental stuff is just sort of what you might call extreme pessimism. You know, I don't feel like anything good is, you know, in the air. I don't feel positive about the future. In fact, you know, based on the news, I'm actually pretty worried about the future. But, you know, there's no, I don't feel a lot of hope. I have not yet given into despair. And I hope I can avoid it, but it's very difficult. So that's sort of the mental aspect of it. Of course, obviously, the emotional aspect of it is I just feel terrible. I'm sad, angry, upset. Things are constantly churning. There's no peace. So that's what it feels like. When people self-delete, it's pretty common for people to say that, you know, that's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. But a lot of people do it, I think, just to make these feelings stop. That it's pretty much the only way you can do that. At least that's how they feel. It may not be actually true. But I think that's why people do. There's a great passage written by David Foster Wallace on the subject. I'm not going to get into it because I know YouTube doesn't really like people talking about this subject too much. But if you Google it, you can find it, and I think it describes the situation really well. Anyway, I am not at that point, so please don't worry that much about me. Hopefully, this is all gonna settle out soon, I hope. But anyway, I'm going to encourage you once again to talk to me in the comments. You don't have to, you know, encourage me through my depression or anything. Just talk to me. It helps. It helps just to have people to talk to. You know, my girlfriend's off at work and is in a shitty mood anyway, and I'm here all by myself. So, you know, say hey. I'd appreciate it. Anyway, I will talk to you guys later. Thanks for being here, and thanks for sticking with me. And I'll talk to you soon. Graham out. Bye.